with the RFC, the Rebel Filmmaking Community. I have today our guest, AJ Cutler, a multi-hyphenate. Known AJ a few years now. I would say... Oop, I just lost you. You still there? I got you. There you are.
Perfect.
Actor, writer, editor, cinematographer, cartoonist, animator, did I say director? Producer, post-producer, a man of truly many capabilities and talents. So a big warm welcome. Thank you for being here, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This is cool.
Yeah, of course. I think so too. I look forward, like, no matter what happens, and like be free. We can talk about anything, we can edit, whatever. It's just like I'm more interested in our conversation than like the result of the conversation.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like this is fun for me already.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I really like this.
Yeah, have you had a chance to do any or do many?
I've done a couple podcasts, I like mostly comedy stuff, but I've done like some music ones. I think this might be my first filmmaking podcast, which is funny because that's my actual industry.
Yeah.
So
although you are a pretty funny guy, so I'd say you'd fit in the comedian podcast. You do, really, man. You do. All right, bro. Well, let's start at the beginning. Where are you from? Like, where were you born and raised?
I was born in Colorado, but I'm from Oklahoma. So I spent all my time growing up there, and yeah, I used to not like that. I used to tell people that I'm from Colorado, but now I actually dig being from Oklahoma. I feel like it gives me a little flavor of this country that I don't normally see a lot, especially represented by people like me. So it's pretty cool. I like Oklahoma.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit more about that, because I feel very similarly in a sense, where I used to have shame as what I would call my stuff around where I was from, because it was like a gangbanging, destitute community.
Yeah.
Which may be different than yours, but in like the same ballpark. So what was that like? How did your relationship grow? What made it grow? Was it moving to LA to kind of have a mirror to be like, oh, back home had some value. That wasn't all bad.
Yeah, I think like moving away really opened my eyes on it, because when I was there, it was just like, gotta get the fuck out of here. Like there can't do anything here, and that was my only goal, was to leave there and not die there. And you know, after being gone for so long, and then seeing that other places aren't really super different, they vary, but all in all, it's just people, it's families, everybody's working. It's all kind of the same stuff happening everywhere with like little minor changes. And those minor changes, I did grow to appreciate more the more that I lived elsewhere. But you know, all that being said, I could never go back there. But I do like to visit a lot. It's one of my favorite places to go, which sounds funny.
No, I totally relate to everything you're saying. It would be borderline impossible for me to move back right now. I mean, at the age of 26, I think you knew this, I lived on a garage floor for a year rather than move back. Like, I literally was like, I got walking hypothermia. I was like, I'd rather die. Dramatic, but that's, you know, how I felt and still sort of feel on a level.
Yeah, the flop house thing, definitely had to do that a couple times, just like sleeping in buddies' uncomfortable positions to not have to move back. But I think that's kind of the difference between, you know, people that are like chasing even small dreams, like if they feel like small creative dreams, you still have to sacrifice a lot. And I've sacrificed seeing my family and watching my nieces grow up, things like that. I'm just that weird uncle that lives halfway across the country now and works on movies. They think, you know, so that's pretty interesting to me. And I always had family members like that just lived far away in cool places, and I never really connected with them. And so that's sort of upsetting that you have to kind of compromise things like that. But the alternative was, working a 9 to 5 in whatever field at a tire shop or something, which I don't. I love any of those jobs. I've had so many manual labor jobs, but I didn't want that to be my everyday, my all day. Like I have creative, things in me that I need to get out, or I feel very angsty. I feel anxious. There's, it feels like something's off. And so I did like chasing those things, and that felt very worth it. Otherwise, I would be right back in Oklahoma, probably with 3 kids and a wife and a teaching job or something like that. I like teaching, though.
I would have been in the military more than likely from, my routes. I relate to a lot of that.
Also, not a bad alternative, but it's just, if you have like a desire to create shit, it's like, you gotta go and you gotta sacrifice some things, and we all hope that it pays off in the long run,
Yeah, and I agree, like, there is nothing wrong with those jobs. Sometimes I wish I could.
Yes.
I wish I could. Because I think a lot of people out there, I think regular jobs get a bad rap. Like, I have a homie who's like, dude, I don't know what I want. Like, he's like, I've never been like that guy that's like, this is my big pipe dream. He's like, I'm from Israel, making some money in America's pretty cool. And I was like, hey, I never heard that perspective. Totally makes sense, Because I used to have a little bit of that, like, oh, like I'm doing something grand and brave, and there is that part of it, but I mean, anybody who's just living on this planet, surviving in a sense, got to give them some credit.
Absolutely.
So, talk to me about how you found art in Oklahoma, or like, when did that come to you in your life? Like, and how did it show up? How was it nurtured, or not?
This was actually, I guess, like since I was a kid, I was pretty creative, but my family is all athletes. My mom knocked out one of my molars while we were playing basketball when I was like 11, I think. Like, she's a beast.
God.
She's a beast. They were both college athletes, and then even their parents were athletes. And so from 4 to 17 years old, that's all I did. I was like a 3 or 4 sport athlete, and it was just a rotation of practice this, new season, practice this, off season, practice this. So I was just in and out of like other moms' cars being dropped off at camps, and that was it. That was all I did. That was my future, my all, my everything. And I had a really bad accident that caused me to lose my leg when I was 17. And all of that just abruptly stopped. So it was kind of like, everybody tried to get me to go into the Paralympics, which I was adamantly against at the point, because I just didn't, I wasn't in the right headspace for it.
Yeah.
And
oh my God.
Not at all. And everybody was trying to push me towards it. And, I was just kind of in this thing where I didn't want to do what anybody wanted me to do anymore. Which, I couldn't really pinpoint if the sports was what I wanted to do the whole time, or if I was just on the ride, which you just can't get off. It's like you're gonna break your legs if you get off, ironically. But it's like you're gonna break your legs if you stay on too.
Yeah.
But that really pushed me into some dark places. I got like deep into, because I was a hip hop guy. I was very, in high school, big baggy jeans, 3X tall tees, gold chains. I had gold teeth. I was very different. And when all that happened, it pushed me into like a really dark place, and I got into like heavy metal. And when I went to college, I became like a metalhead, and all my metal friends were artists. They were like graffiti artists, photographers, like they all did something else. And then I remembered like hanging out with these guys. It's like, oh yeah, like, you know, I used to make movies. I didn't really remember it, but I started making a bunch of YouTube videos for us, and everybody was just like, whoa, you can edit? Like, I'm like, yeah. You can't edit videos, dude?
Yeah.
And they're like, no. And my school didn't even have a film program. I asked them for the film program, and they signed me up for graphic design. Like, and so I did a full year at that university under graphic design, and then I was just like, I gotta get out of here.
Is this in Colorado?
That's all in Oklahoma.
Oklahoma,
So
okay.
like all of that's in Oklahoma. I went to like the college for the Paralympic training site. That basically all the amputees across the world come there to train.
Oh my God, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it was by chance, and I did not want to be around any amputees. So I'm now flooded with amputees going, "Hey man, heard you have one leg. Heard you," and I'm like, "Don't you tell anybody else that." I'm like 19, like shut your mouth, dude. And that was my own stuff. You know, they were trying to help me, and I had to like really come to terms with that stuff. And
I can't even imagine.
Yeah, it's all like, especially for a kid, but beyond that, that's what pushed me into just being more and more creative. And when I was in Oklahoma, I started meeting all these rappers, which everybody thinks that we like rode horses to school, and it's like, no,
big lifted trucks.
Yeah, big lifted trucks. There's rednecks and gangs and farmers and athletes. There's all kinds of things happening down there. But
horses.
That's like, literally, people ask me that, like, oh yeah,
300 horses.
Did you live on a farm? This and that. I'm like, no, I lived in a neighborhood. Like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
So that was all in Oklahoma, and then, you know, I started meeting rappers, and then I started meeting other musicians, and all these people wanted me to make music videos for them, and so I was doing this with like almost nothing, like some camera that my girlfriend had at the time. Like, I don't even know. I think we just like took it from her mom, and her mom was like, I don't know what to do, and then I'm like making music videos with it and editing on like some like pirated Sony Vegas like 9-year-old version of it, and I'm just like editing on that on a laptop that's catching on my lap on fire, basically. But that was like all my beginning stuff, and then, you know, I started telling everybody, like, I think I'm gonna go to film school. And they're like, that's cute. What you gonna do to support your family though? And I'm like, I gotta get out of here, dude. Like, that's crazy. So my mom forced me to go to film school, like literally forced me, like put all my shit in a U-Haul and was like, well, there's one in Colorado, so we'll drive your stuff there and drop you off. And I was like, you gotta be kidding me. Like, I don't want to move, you know, but it was like the best thing in my life, like, honestly. And I've never turned back. I've just kept going after that. And then until Jordan forced me to move to LA. And so I never really want to move, but fortunately there's people around me that have seen the potential in me more than I've seen it in myself. And they've kind of, you know, when I've talked about certain things, they've kind of pushed me in those directions. I don't know if I would have been able to pursue this stuff without so much support, you know?
Yeah. Good for you, man. And you deserve it. And it's good that you're able to see that now, because I feel like a few years ago we might, and there's no judgment, I don't know if I would have been able to have this conversation. So it just shows the growth we're all going through, which is fucking awesome. You know?
Yeah.
Change is uncomfortable.
It is. And we've come like a super long way. Like, have you ever cut in camera? You know, like on the old tape cameras that you had to like rewind to the part that you wanted to cut on and then you start recording?
Yes.
Dude, that's like the earliest form of editing for us.
That's true. I never thought about that.
So brutal.
Oh my God. Okay, so you're in Colorado. How many years are you, and what's the school, and like what's your experience of the school? Because, you know, film school's got many reputations, so and let it fly, whatever you think. Or your experience.
I went to a place called Colorado Film School, which it sounds grand, but that's just really good marketing. And it's actually inside of a community college in Aurora, so it's like a little wing of that community college. I thought it was great. There were some grumpy professors there that had, they seemed like they were a little bitter, and they kind of projected that onto some of us. They'd say, "You see this movie Jaws? You're never gonna work on a movie like this. You're never gonna do like some." There were some people that would say some things like
I
that.
believe it.
And I think they were just trying to weed everybody out a little bit, but it was a little disheartening sometimes. And I was also still trying to figure myself out. And so the technical stuff I learned from film school, I think, is great, but it's only because of the knowledge that I already went into it with. Because I had to argue about things, these rigid rules, never jump cut, never ever jump cut, and then I'm like, what if you're trying to like show a passage of time, like in one scene? Oh well, yeah, then it's okay to jump cut, and I'm like, okay, well, what if you're trying to do that? Well, yeah, okay, then it's okay to jump cut, and I'm like. So can we like X out the word never jump cut, like since there is a creative artistic way to do it, and that just seemed to be every single rule. This rule, well you can do that. This rule, well you can do that. And I'm like, okay, it gives me a good foundation. But the school as a whole, I found it to be like what most other people talk about, where a small group gets a lot of attention from the school, and they make incredible films their entire journey through, and then everybody else is kind of on their own and has to help each other. And you're talking, there's everything. There's people in there that are award-winning already, that are killing film festivals, and there's like 60-year-old people in there that don't know where the record button is on the camera. So you might get one of those, or you might get one of the guys who's already making a true TV pilot or something. So it just broadens very differently. I found it pretty tough to navigate, but the information was invaluable. And it was coming from people who had worked in the industry. Of course, you can find all that information, but to get it all packaged,
not at that time either. YouTube wasn't what it was at that time, with all these tutorials and stuff.
Like 10 years ago, something like that. Yeah, so it was definitely a lot, not as saturated as it is now.
And what, like at this school, because you do so many things, were you focused on one thing in particular, or was this kind of like you take a producing class, you take an editing class, you take a directing course?
So they push you down a focus, but they would make you select your focus before you started, which to me is very counterintuitive, because you don't even know what. Exactly. I didn't even know what a producer did. Truthfully, when I went to film school, I didn't know what a director did. I just hated them. I was like, oh, these guys are pieces of shit, and they just take all the credit while we do everything. And then, now I know very different. I'm like, oh, don't put that evil on me. I don't know if I want all this, but it's they make you choose beforehand. So I had chosen a writing producing track because I felt the best about my writing. And that turned out, I think I ended up changing that. Oh, yeah. I changed it to cinematography.
Oh, that's rad. That makes sense. Because that's sort of how I met you.
Yep.
Was in that. So let's talk a little bit about, and thanks for sharing. That was really helpful. Let's talk about from Colorado to LA. Walk me through that, because I'm from San Diego, so I'm 3 hours away. I still think it's brave what I did, to be 21. Oh, shit. Lost AJ for a moment. There he is. I still think it's brave, but like when someone moves across the country, I'm like, oh, whoa. Like that's a different type of gumption. And especially when they do it a little older. Like I had Adam Harrington, and he moved to LA when he was 37. And I was like, what? From Canada? He's like, yeah. So I'm always curious, like, was it naivete? Was it, like you said already a few times, like kind of had a knife to your back a little bit, and it was a blessing in disguise, or? Mm, mm, mm-hmm. It's asking AJ to refresh his page. Yeah, no worries. Mm. Hold on, folks. I'll be right back. And during this break, just kidding, I could do improv for the next hour. I was just gonna start improvising, like a one man show. Uh, but all right. So you were saying the distance.
Yeah, the distance, you know, you're getting the same effects that I'm getting with the distance, where basically, you know, you're missing out on things, on
Totally.
daily family events and stuff like that. Which that's just a given, but the actual move, I think, is the only really hard part. That first immediate transition. And then everything after that is it just flows. You start meeting people, and then you realize, like, oh yeah, these people are all scared too, and they want someone to talk to. It's pretty interesting. I think moving to Colorado, the whole time I was there, I always had in my mind that I was going to go back to Oklahoma. And so I was kind of like, you know, 1 foot out the door, 1 foot in. I would visit like 6 or 7 times a year. I would go back to Oklahoma like 6 or 7 times a year. All my friends would fly out and visit me. I'd never really fully like inundated myself, like assimilated to Colorado living. I was always kind of in Oklahoma. But what I realized that whole time is none of that stuff ever changed. I could go back to Oklahoma tomorrow, and I would have all my same connections. I'll get jobs. I'll have all my same friends. Like, they're all there. It's just, it starts to feel like a lot less high stakes. And then it's really, what do I want to do? Do I want to work in a mall? Do I want to go be a civil engineer? No, I want to create stuff. And my best opportunities to do that are here. So a little bit, there was a knife to my back, but I hadn't been in the creative arena in probably 2 or 3 years when Jordan started calling me outside of making billboards and commercials for companies that I was working for. And then coming out here was like, oh yeah, there's a whole creative world that I've kind of blocked off for myself, that I have access to now. So the move, it was worth it 100%. And like, it's all super hard, but I don't even think about any of that stuff because of how worth it ends up being.
I love that. I'm going to stop the record real quick because I'm still getting the thing. Since I'm already going to have to re-record with Kyle, so I'm like not afraid of it, but I'd rather not.
Yeah.
All right. So thanks for bearing with us, guys. I'm having a technical issue, but here we are nonetheless. F it. Here we go. So Jordan calls you. Let's talk about Mr. Wisely a little bit. This is, for those who don't know, this was my producing partner on The Stalking Fields, co-writer, one of the stars, childhood friend and rival and confidant of AJ, turned like brother over the years. You know, complex, rich relationship, we'll say. A lot of similarities in work ethic, and then also some beautiful disparities in philosophy on life and things. And neither of you are afraid to voice your opinion, and I've always loved that about you two. So yeah, because he's the guy who got you out in a sense. So I just wanted to talk
for context.
Yeah, and give him a little context. That it wasn't just Joe Schmo calling you.
No. Yeah, he was definitely he was on TV at the time and was needing more and more media work and photography and editing and things like that. And you guys were about to move into making your feature, so all of your focus was going towards that. So that was kind of the cool thing, which was awesome to come out and jump on the feature automatically, which is out right now, and I'm writing a blog about it right now.
Oh, fuck yeah. I want to talk about that later, so we do have space for it.
Cool.
And look, I'm happy to go over an hour. We'll just check in at 1 o'clock and see how we're feeling, okay?
Yeah.
But do you remember what the first thing you did when you moved to LA was? It was the fashion show at the Sky Bar Mondrian on Sunset.
I forgot. That was 3 days after I moved here.
Yeah. We got to know each other real quick because that was
brutally
maybe one of the more stressful nights of my whole life. And I ended up like blacked out in oblivion because I just couldn't handle all the shit. And I don't blame anybody. It was just like we were in over our heads.
Yeah. It was a lot.
Jordan's like rolling motorcycles into the fucking Mondrian.
Into the club, onto the rooftop pool, like through the elevator. I'm like, I don't think we're supposed to be doing this. We got U-Hauls on Sunset Boulevard. It's like causing traffic jams. That was, I was like, is this what you guys do? Because I might move back.
It was nuts, dude.
It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was fun in retrospect, but that night was holy shit. So you get to LA, that's the first thing, and then the stocking fields, I guess, would be the next thing we did together, at least.
It was almost immediate because you were supposed to be shooting it in another part of the country, and then that all changed, and so that was going to happen immediately when I got there, and then it got postponed for about 3 months, I think, which sounds long, but is for it to move an entire production is not long at all. That's actually stressfully fast. And so that was really cool, and we hopped right into that, which still to this day is probably one of the most fun projects that I've worked on, like as a whole, as like being on set and being with the crew and being tight with people. Like the rest of them have been very businessy.
You were one of the most involved artisans on the project, period. Like for those who don't know or are following along, AJ started as a second AC on set, but was way more helpful and doing beyond his position as we were. And then after the movie, he did the opening credit sequence. He became a post-production supervisor because he handled all the conduits of sound, video, and VFX and color. And I mean, you were basically a motherfucking producer on the thing. And so it was, and we got to meet Patrick, our editor at the time quit, and you got handed this project, and I remember being like, I know AJ can do it, but I don't know if he wants, like, who would want this to inherit this was my fear. And so thank God you did, because if you didn't, I don't know if it would be out right now.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Cool. Of course.
So, I wanted to hear your perspective. You can start anywhere, go anywhere, omit anything, talk about your relationships with Michael and Sophia, because we'll get to those projects too.
Great. Yeah, I mean, that was where I met Michael and Sophia, which they are a couple, like a directing couple. But I met a lot of people on that set that I still work with to this day. That was, I think that's where I met Cody. Cody's amazing. Even just for riffing, for bouncing ideas off of. But anyways, I can go on and on about like all of these people, but the project, coming back in on the project in post was an easy decision for me because I was so close to you guys, and I was also so close to the meetings that you were having about the post process. And so I had already seen by the time you guys were almost ready to picture lock and ready to start delivering, I had seen maybe 40 different cuts of this film, so like I was already super invested, and like this is in no means my movie, but while the whole time I was on this project, for some reason it felt like my movie. Like it felt like I wrote part of it or something, you know. And I don't normally feel like that on sets, and so whenever you guys came to me basically to tie up all the deliveries and start getting that back on track, I probably would have said no to most people, but not because it sucked, but just out of I don't normally understand the pressure or the intent that most people have, and with you guys it was all very upfront, and so it was like, let's try and figure this out. This guy couldn't figure it out, and he's, you know, more well decorated than I am, but I'm willing to take a whack at it. I'll put my pride aside and I'll try this, and if I can't do it, I'll give it back to you, and we'll go from there. And the stuff I learned from doing that and the people that I met on that, again, I couldn't pay for that stuff, you know, and so I'm really glad that I went through with that, and it also made me have a deeper connection to the film. Like, when I watch it now, it's, you know, it's funny because my name doesn't pop up until, you know, a while, but I'm like, I don't even feel that way. I'm like, this is like my movie, like, which is, that's a weird way to feel. Normally it's, yeah, I'm working on Jordan's movie, or I'm working on Sean's movie. With this, I've always just been like, yeah, I'm working on the Stocking Fields. Sean and Jordan wrote it, but in my heart, I feel so connected to it, you know?
Yeah, I'm so glad to hear that, because that is ultimately like what I want as an artist. Like, it's just so obviously collaborative. Like, people will be like, I loved what you did in some of these interviews I'm doing. I loved what you did with the plastic wrap. I'm like, full credit Nick Acosta, right? Or full credit AJ Cutler with that opening. Full credit Jordan, because it's Brooke, who, like, you can go on and on. Rudy, Rick. It's just like, I love that. And that's the fucking truth.
Yeah.
It's the truth. Everybody, like, when I watch the opening, I think of you. And it makes me smile, because for those who've seen the movie, we had a way softer opening, I would say. And it was the way it was written. It wasn't anybody's fault. It just didn't work, right? That's one thing I learned. Sometimes you can get everything you wanted, and it still doesn't work.
Yeah.
So AJ came up with this more radical, I would call it, more energized opening, and it just fucking slaps. And did many trailers. Let's not forget that. You had to go through the ringer, and we learned so much dealing with Gravitas and our distribution company and all this shit. So,
which I wrote some about that too.
Yeah, man.
It's a whole like dog and pony show out here. But it's, you know, learning those things is annoying, and my whole filmmaking career I've been like, I need to find a rock star producer so I don't have to deal with all this stuff. But the thing is that I think most of these people became producers through the fire, you know, they were another job, and then they kind of saw that something needed to be done, and they stepped into a role, and they realized, oh, I can do this, I can do that. I don't think there are just rock star producers exist, or people go out seeking to be a rock star producer. I think it kind of finds them, which I think it kind of found some of us. I think, you know, you found a producer in yourself on this thing. So it was, it was a very, like, full circle for the whole thing to start off the way it did, and all the pieces to come together at the end. No matter what, super collaboration.
I can't believe we made it.
It's wild.
Like, it's done. I mean, you shot scenes too. You shot like the gun range scene.
Yep.
You know, like, I'm just remembering all of your contributions, man. Oh, I mean, we literally couldn't have done it without you. And I'm glad to not have done it without you, because not only do I love your artistic taste, I mean, this artistry aside, I love being around you. So there's that. That's like the basis. Then you're also an artist who pushes me, who doesn't settle, and also understands art. I think you have this really beautiful respect for the foundations and the histories of the people behind us, and also this curiosity to what else can be done.
Yeah.
And some people are either too adherent to the past or too disregarding of it, that they just blow through things that are like simple things that they fuck up because they're just trying to break all the rules. But you don't want to break all the rules because some of them are really helpful and they're simple to execute.
Yes.
So it's like, just do the simple one. And I still learn too, because I did not go to film school. And sometimes I jump out of hierarchy on a set and then get swiftly reminded just through the course of action, there's hierarchy for a reason or whatever, right? So...
And that's one of the things I really, really respect about the filmmaking is the hierarchy. And as annoying as it is, I can have like the most shithead, dumbass director that I've ever worked for, but it's like, whatever, dude. Like, I'll do it. You know, this is your thing, and I'm gonna tell you my opinion every single time. But at the end of the day, it is your decision. So let's go. You know, I think that's a very bad cut, but that's what you want, and we'll try it both ways. And if you still want it that way, let's go with it. So it's the hierarchy is really important, or else nothing will ever get finished. That's kind of what I figured out.
No, that's so true. It can't be diplomatic. Like the execution or the elocution of can be diplomatic, but not the set. The set needs to be like a monarchy or something in a way.
Yes.
And just equal respect everywhere. You don't treat people like they're peasants and kings, obviously. You just understand that these positions communicate for economic reasons, for clarity. And that's why. Just
it's purely economical, and the clarity thing is like so important. Like I don't, if you're directing, you don't need to be hearing the issues that camera's having with their wireless monitor. It's like it's all separate. You don't need to even worry about it. Go practice with the actors. I love that separation, and whenever everybody understands it, it's like a well-oiled machine. You know, it's a bunch of ants.
Totally. And I was on this shoot. I was acting in December, and it was a huge shoot, like probably 100 cast and crew, 10 to 12 grip trucks. It was for GMC, and I was the lead. And, it just felt different. It felt very peer-to-peer. But what I'll give myself some snaps for is my ego wasn't there. So I was like looking at the call sheet. I mean, when I had downtime, like, that's the other thing. I really understand the set now. Like, I know when I can approach the director. I know what the first AD is doing. I know what... But if I don't, and this is what happened, I'm looking at VTR. And I see DIT on the call sheet, too. I'm like, DIT and VTR? I thought they were, like, similar, like, Venn diagrams that overlapped. So I was like, Sean, the truth is, you don't know what the fuck VTR is. So let's go ask. So I found him and I said, hey man, what do you do? Like what? And he's behind all like this bank of
the
like
digitent.
It was like in a rolling cart, but basically exactly a digitent. And he was so cool. He was like, I am in charge of every monitor and connection. And I was like, oh, I thought you were like DIT. He's like, no. DIT operates like this. And he explained it. And it made me laugh because I was thinking, you've ran DIT for us as well. Like how many layers there are on these sets between the DP and DIT. Like there's 5, maybe 6, And I was like, whoa, we cut all those guys out.
Yeah, DIT is like 5 people.
Yeah. It was like wild. So it was cool to be like, oh, I understand exactly what's going on. Like I could predict when I was going to get cut from the shoot, and I was right. And I could predict when other people, and I was like 2 years ago, 5 years ago, I had been like, What's going on? I'm just trying. Okay, sorry, sir. I'm in the way.
And that's producer brain. And also people talk about, like, oh, what makes a like good talent? Like what, like on camera talent? Like what makes this guy better than this guy? They both deliver lines. What, this guy does funny accents? Like and it's like, no, it's a culmination of all of those things. Yeah. And the pros, they can walk in. You don't have to tell them to go to their spot. They can hear when the camera whispers start happening, and they're like, oh, camera's about to roll. I'm going to get into position. The lighting guys stop touching the lights. I'm going to get into position. There's all these little tells that tell you that, and you walk on and you sit there, and they don't have to say anything, and then no one has to say anything to the slate, and he walks up, camera speed, he's ready to go, boom, and then the guy looks up and then delivers the line, and it's like, boom. It was that easy. That's a pro, and it is a culmination of all of those things, of knowing when to be able to step in and ask a question, knowing when to be able, like, guessing when you're going to be cut. That's crazy, because some people will sit there and think that you're coming in for 2 hours, and they're there for 12, and they're pissed to the last 10 hours.
That's right. That's
right. You're also like curbing your expectations in a very realistic way, which I like. It's funny about this like film industry, because no matter how long you're in it, like what's the point where you're like, oh, that's it. I can't learn anything else about this stuff.
I know, and that's fucking boring. It's boring. One of my buddies, Dave Padilla, he's a big post sound guy like Patrick. You haven't met him yet, but you guys would vibe. Like, he's like a Silver Lake dude. And he was telling me that Tom Cruise, he's worked with him a few times, he knows every position on set.
Yeah.
Like, not knows it, can do it.
Yeah.
Professionally. He said he could mix professionally. And he knows the mics, so when he's doing ADR, he's like, oh, with this mic, I need to be like this. Like, that's an actor that like fucking inspires me, just because he's so curious and he's open. And if I'm like deciding between two things, I'm often now like, does it open me or does it close me off? Yeah. And if it opens me, I try and go towards that, even if it's uncomfortable.
Yeah, that's a good thought. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it just keeps it simpler instead of overthinking it. I'm like, okay, wait. Get all this mind clutter out. Does it open me? Does it make me live more, or does it bring me closer to death? Yeah. And that's been fucking awesome, man. And I just had something. This is what I was going to say. Lately, like, if you really think about a scene that works, it's a fucking miracle. Like, to do the sound, to do the visual in a way that captures you, but isn't overtaking the story or the performance. The performance, the casting, the energy. It's a miracle.
It's like 100 different people all bringing their little spices in and dropping them in your pot, and then it still tastes good.
Yeah.
Like, it's insane that it even works.
That's a good way to put it. We had 47 people work on the stocking fields. I counted earlier today. 47 artists. That's a shit ton of fucking input from a lot of people.
A lot of input.
Yeah. And we finished that motherfucker. All right.
See, I had guessed somewhere around like 25, but I think I was going off of Pollock Pines when we were actually in the woods. But it was probably more around like 30. Probably 35 with the cast. The cast was like pretty packed.
At our height, it was 30 something. Yeah.
Yeah, that's wild. Yeah. Especially be trudging around in the woods and with all that gear.
Yeah.
Man.
Oh my god. You got injured on the shoot, right?
In
like
the
you got
worst way possible. I got sent to the urgent care because I carried a table awkwardly and it pulled a tendon in my hand.
That's fucking I mean, we were all crazy overworked, but I would argue maybe no one worse than the camera team. You guys were fucking going for it.
Yeah, I feel like it was pretty hard on everybody with like the snow and the rain and the mud, and we got like every season during that shoot.
Yeah, I know. The blizzard.
Blizzard.
I just did an interview yesterday, and they're like, "Can you tell me a story of when something went wrong?" I was like, "Well, where do I begin? Like, which one?"
We got backed up for 4 days, 7 hours away on location with 40 people on set. Yeah, that's a pretty big boo-boo.
Yeah. And if if you switch on your producer hat, you're like, all right, how much money a day is this shoot? Well, for Stocking Fields, it was 5 G's a day. So every day we push, we're burning that potentially. Mm-hmm. So it was stressful.
Oh yeah, buddy. I already know. And everybody's having snowball fights and stuff
And Jordan's out of town all of a sudden. Oh my God. Dude, I'll never forget. It was in a fight scene, for those who've seen the movie. At the end was like the gnarliest day of filming that I've ever experienced. That's when AJ got hurt, so he wasn't there. And he's like so instrumental to camera, right? And then early in the day, the DP and the director got into a fight, and the DP takes some time, we'll say, away from set. So there's that. Matt, I believe, just is like, fuck it, let's just keep rolling, right? Thank God. Or we would have eaten the shit out of the day. Thank you, Matt Stewart's. Fucking love that guy.
Incredible cameraman.
Class act. I met him through Paul Zurcher, who I've never met in person, but I love the man to death because he did something so motherfucking stand up. He was our guy. And then 2 weeks before shooting, his dog got sick. And he was afraid he was going to have to put it down, and he didn't want his wife to have to do it alone. So he calls out of the shoot. Now, mind you, we're renting all of his equipment.
Yeah, it's only his equipment.
And it was our DP's guy. Like, Nick's like, that's my guy. Yeah. And he found Matt before he even contacted me. So it was like this, right away solved the problem. And I just thought, that's a motherfucking professional. And if I ever have the opportunity to hire him again, I will. And did. So I've heard nothing but good things about Paul.
Oh, I've worked with Paul a ton. You'd love him.
I'm sure, man. I'm sure. He's like Bill in that Bill Mold crew, right?
Yeah, but he's a jokester. He's a real he doesn't say a lot of serious things. He's a really good dude, and he's got a shit ton of gear, and he's always helping out these productions in a way where he's getting them a lot of resources for a package deal that they probably wouldn't have been able to get unless they paid like 3 times that rate.
Yeah.
He's really good for the small guys. I like Paul a lot, and I think his dog actually did end up passing away. So during shooting, so that was because that was the thing where I was like, what? That's bullshit. That guy's dog isn't dying. And then I met him afterwards, and I was like, oh yeah, it actually did, and he's actually a really stand up dude. So
it should. I was in Thailand. And it was 9 a.m. when I got that call, and I'm all alone, and I'm on the balcony. I remember it, and I'm like, just listening to him. And I remember that was a big lesson for me as a person, and then that spills into my filmmaking, obviously. But, old Sean wouldn't have let him finish, probably, and just been angry and kicked up dust. But I just, like the hand of God or whatever, just said, listen, man, just listen. And it worked out. Not because I listened. It worked out easier because I listened. But that was just a good lesson, and we've talked about that too. Like, things just kind of play out if you let them. When you start manhandling them, it gets worse in a way. Yeah. And that was the first, I wasn't perfect. That was the first taste in that. And I had many lessons on the Stocking Fields. Thank God. Because it'd be weird to walk away and be like, didn't learn a thing. I'm good.
Yeah, off that 3.5 year journey and making a feature. The thing with Matt Stewart's that you got insanely lucky with that I didn't realize until afterwards is I worked with this guy a lot afterwards. And he tells me, I'm in a hotel room with him, and he's like, yeah, I made this feature one time. It's just this little, and I'm like, oh yeah, you made a feature? Cool. All right. I randomly come across it, and it's like good.
I believe it.
Really good.
Those guys are artists. All that group are artists.
Dude, he's actually a DP. Like, he's a DP / director, and he cam ops for money. And so we got him last minute, but he comes in with literally a director of photography eye. And meaning, like, he's shot his own thing. It looks like a studio film. And it looks incredible, and he did it all himself. Wow. And it's like, okay, we got so lucky getting him on, and
I agree.
That big ass dude with that pink mohawk, dude.
And he was so chill. He was so chill. Yeah.
He's the nicest guy in the world.
Yeah.
He's so smiley. He's literally like the best vibe you can have on set. So like, I couldn't believe how all that worked out. It was just, this fell through, and then the better thing happened. Yeah. This fell through, and then the better thing happened. And that was kind of the story of making that movie,
Yeah, that's right. It's kind of like life isn't happening to you, it's happening for you. And you can only kind of ride that wave if you think like that. I used to think, oh, this is happening to me. Look, fuck, it's not fair. But as soon as and I'm not perfect at this, but I do try because it is a better feeling for me. It's like, no, this is clearing the space for something better. I just don't see it yet. Because that happened on Helmet too, man, like, which is another project you and I worked on. You did the trailer. You were on set. Thank God. I always love having you on set. It just feels reliable. I always know, like, if I ask AJ, he'll have an opinion that's sound. And even if I don't agree with it, it's not or he'll tell me I don't know, which a lot of people don't have the vocabulary to say, I don't know.
Yeah, it's very important to me. That specifically is very important to me because I don't learn anything new when I don't do that.
I love that perspective. So we talked about stocking fields plenty. Helmet's cool, but I wanted to talk about the once and future smash. What a title. Like when I go to the IMDb, the picture is you like with these two old dudes on either side of you who are like gore porn legends. Is that correct? Like they're horror legends, but more in the like slasher gore style, right? Not like the thriller like fucking Hereditary. It's more like, no, we're gonna get blood and guts, right? Am I misremembering that?
Well, there's like a specific kind of sect of horror, and it's the trauma films.
Trauma. Can you talk to me a little bit about that?
Yeah, so the trauma films, they're all made by this one production company, Trauma Films. And their most famous thing is probably the Toxic Avenger.
I've heard of that.
Yeah, most people have seen it, at least the cover on streaming services. But for like horror fans, it's a huge cult classic. And then you've got the two old guys specifically. They're in a lot of those old cult classic sort of
Michael St. Martin.
Michael St. Michael's.
And
yes, which is the best.
The best name ever. Yeah.
This guy, I just was at his apartment the other day in Long Beach, and he's got a Picasso. He's got a real Picasso in his apartment, just like behind a bunch of other papers. He's the most eccentric guy. The first time I met him, I said, "Hey, how you doing, Michael?" And he goes, I used to wear tap shoes when I rode my scooter around town. That way when I slam my heel, it makes sparks fly out behind me. And I go, okay, man. Nice to meet you. He's so bizarre, but I love these guys. And Bill is famous for this movie called Sergeant Kabukiman, NYPD. And it's another one of those old like B horror movies where Bill plays the bad guy. And then Michael has been in like everything. Like Michael, there's a scene of Michael handing Columbo the telephone.
No way.
Michael has been in everything.
I mean, yeah.
He's incredible, and he remembers like half of it. He doesn't. He's like, well, I'll tell him about things that he's in, and he's like, oh yeah, don't remember doing that. It was in the '80s. The '80s were crazy, and so like I love this guy. But where I heard about him was in this movie called The Greasy Strangler, and it came out in 2017. And I'm working at a dispensary at the time in Denver, and so I'm with all these stoners, and I'm like, hey, have you guys seen this trailer? And they're like, oh, dude, this is like the funniest thing. And so we have this watch party for it when it comes out, and it's
no
this
way.
yeah, dude, and it's about this old man, and he lives with his son who's a virgin, and he's like 40. And and they're codependent, but they just fight with each other all the time. And the son finds out that his dad at night covers himself in grease, in kitchen grease, and goes out and murders people. He goes out and strangles them to death.
Which is harder because he's greasy.
He's greasy, yeah, they're slippery, so he's real good. But it's so cartoonish, like their eyes are like popping out of their heads when he's squeezing them, and it's got a disco theme. The whole movie has a disco theme. He shows his dick. They give him a 9-inch long prosthetic dick that the old man has. So he amasses a huge following of women after this that are like, I'd love to sleep with the Greasy Strangler. And so I'm in love with this movie. Cut to after Stocking Fields, Michael and Sophia are like, hey, we're working on this thing. I don't know if you've ever heard of this stupid movie. It's called The Greasy Strangler. And I was like, I love The Greasy Strangler. And Michael's like, oh, well, then, yeah, I'm doing this project. Do you want to be in it? And I'm like, do I want to be in a movie with The Greasy Strangler? Yes, absolutely. And it grows and grows and grows until all of a sudden it's a double feature. I don't even know how that happened. I think they planned.
You're a lead actor in it, right?
I am a lead actor in it. And then my father is the lead in the old 70s horror movie that they made. And it's an incredible piece, like artistically, because they did all this press, all this stuff. They made all these names up, and it was this real confusing thing at festivals where, people are trying to figure out, like, where did they get this movie that they restored that was shot 40, 50 years ago, and then now they're making this documentary about it. So I'm in both. And we ended up, the old guys are like 80. That's
so fucking cool and creative.
It's great. It's super creative, and I love that they go for it. Like, make a big thing around your movie. Like, why not?
That's cool. I love Michael and Sophia.
Well, they do huge things. Like, they're like evil geniuses, Michael Epstein and Sophia Cassiola, which I told them that they should both just take Sophia's last name, and Michael should just be Michael Cassiola.
Oh, that's amazing.
And they're actually thinking about it.
Oh,
so
I love that. Tell Sophia I still have her umbrella. It's so funny. Dude, it's so funny, bro, because she lent it to me on that horrific day. And was like, Sean, this umbrella means a lot to me. Like, don't lose it. And I was like, okay. And I didn't. It's in my closet. I never use it. And every time I see it, I think about it, but then I forget to text her. And so I'm just like, if you ever see her, go, hey, Sean has your umbrella. Because I bet she forgot she gave it to me.
Had to have.
Yeah.
I saw her like 2 days ago. I will tell her. But that movie that they made, it's I'm just like super grateful that they always want to include me in their projects, and especially on screen. But those guys were so old that they didn't anticipate that they would only get about 2 hours of shooting with them per day.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Like children.
Oh yeah, like they got to be asleep at like 6 p.m. Like Bill's like 83 or something like that.
That's old. That's old.
That's very old, and we shot it in an expo, in an expo while a horror event was happening, and so we used the crowd as extras and things like that, and we were basically just handing out the release forms. we're just handing out. We had like 4,000 release forms by the end of filming. So these guys were super tired. So he ends up having to write all these extra scenes for me to fill the movie up. And then when it gets finished, I'm like, for sure in most of the movie, and I was terrified because I didn't even remember filming it hardly, and I was like, I don't know what I did. Somebody gets naked. There's it's wild. It was very wild. But I saw it at Screenfest, and it was good. Thank you. It's doing really well in festival circuit. So I get weird ass messages all the time of they use my name in the film as an insult. So, there's a scene where they're screaming, like, "You're AJ!" And, "No, I'm not AJ! Don't you call me AJ! You're AJ!" And like, they're just going off. And then it starts, like, a chant, like, "You are AJ! You are AJ!" And so, people kind of, like, message me, insulting me with my own name. Like, "Hey, AJ, God, I'm never going to be an AJ like you." And I'm like, God damn, this is, thank you for enjoying the movie, but this is crazy.
Yeah, it's wild, bro. I remember, it's funny, Michael took me aside when we were in Pollock Pines, and he's like, I love Mike. I love both. They're very different, I find. So Michael's like a little gentler, like teacher energy, because I think he was a teacher, right?
He is
from Boston.
Yep.
And they're both from Boston, if I recall. And he's like, hey, man, I'm just like doing the math on your script, and I don't think you're going to have enough movie. And I was like, I think we'll be okay. Not like he's wrong, I'm right. I just was like, I know what he's thinking, and he's right. But I know what we're going to get, and I feel like we'll be in the ballpark. Yeah. So it's funny to me that he had to write material to make his own movie long enough.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. But, dude, no, and I'm glad he said that to me because I kept it in my mind the rest of the shoot. He said it to me on like day 4, and he did it the right way. He pulled me aside. I try to praise in public and critique in private.
Yeah.
Even on this last movie, I had a fellow producer. We did Good Bad Things together, which you're the editor of, and you did DIT, and now you're post-production supervisor and all that amazing stuff that you more than earned. And I remember I was lead producer, so there were producers under me. And this producer, I was having a critical moment with them outside. And they were like, well, how come I'm the only one? And I was like, hey, I don't do this in front of anybody. Like, I take you aside. So that's why you're not going to see it. Because you don't want to blow, like, my friend said this to me the other day. He's like, when you're shooting at a deer, if this is a hunting analogy, you don't want to shoot all the scenery around it to kill the deer. Like, right? Like, you don't want to just blow up the thing you're shooting at. Like, you're not going to nuke the deer to kill it, right? So shoot the deer, but leave the rest. Because you can totally change the energy on set by 100%. Having a blow up. And I've been a part of those. So I got to learn firsthand where I'm like, ooh, that wasn't good. That wasn't good for the project.
The energy afterwards, after that happens, I've never felt more regret in my life. Anytime that I've made something like that happen. Yeah. I'm like, oh, cool. Now we're not having a good day for the rest of the day, for sure.
Yeah. Dude, it's a trip. We've worked on like 1 trillion projects together, including like the Rebel Preacher.
That's what I was just about to say. Even the projects we've worked on that haven't been released or are probably never going to come out.
It's been 2 years now, right?
Yeah, I'm not worried about it, but it spawned Helmet.
Yeah,
So like I look at that as a W. You know what I mean? I mean that got those guys really excited. And it also made me feel good walking onto that set, not having really talked to anybody on the EPs, and they kind of voiced like, we really wanted you to shoot this, but just with my health at the time, it wasn't really going to happen, and that made me feel really good, like based off of that project that they saw that we shot with 3 people total. That was a good feeling.
You absolutely crushed it. Like, Rebel Preacher is as beautiful of a. I still wish we had the voiceover layer, and a part of me wants to just do it for our own private edit. somebody else just does the VO or we judge it up a little bit in post.
Yeah.
But, I was thinking about it the other day. I'm like, damn, do I pull that for my reel? Like, can I put that on my website? Like, because I've texted him maybe 3 times and it's always like, plans coming soon. And I'm like, all right, soon's different. No, like, truly no judgment. It's his to do with what he wants. It just bums me out because I think you and I, especially when we're on projects together, we get involved, like our hearts, everything from The Silence of You music video to Emperor Palpatine, those sketches, Call to Duty. I mean, all the strap stuff over the years.
It's been a lot of stuff.
Like the rooftop smash video. Like, I don't know whose idea that was, you or Jordan, but the execution of that was really rad and it was really cool. Just art installation to be a part of. Yeah. And it was like a good reminder when I see it, like even to this day, that art of all kinds is great for me, and I can like pull into this medium too. So like sometimes if I'm feeling burnout on this, step back and do some charcoal or do some paint or throw in a game.
I think, and we talked about that a little bit, I think having other outlets, whenever you're a filmmaker, having other outlets that you can creatively express yourself faster, I think is really important, because I'm pretty cynical, and whenever we talked about just to cap off the entire, like, these are all good experiences, we had talked about the sort of bitter sweetness of the end of the stocking fields, and it was like,
talk about it. Be as honest as you want, brother.
Yeah, we sold this thing, and then I had mentioned, like, we did all the hard stuff, and we did everything, all the grueling process, and we beat ourselves down, and we grinded it out and finished the thing, and then none of the fun stuff really happened afterwards, of like celebrating our accomplishments. Even finishing a movie, especially a feature, is a huge accomplishment in itself, and so that kind of made me realize, like, life happens, these movies take a long time to make, things change, people rearrange, life happens, and so you're not going to be able to always get these parties or get-togethers or celebratory moments that you would want, and that's why you have to really enjoy the things you're working on. Like those times in the woods, that was my payoff for stocking fields. You know what I mean? Other than like my actual pay, but like that was my big. That's like. I met so many people there. It felt like I was living on a pirate ship. It felt like summer camp. Yeah. Like I ate with those people. I slept with those people. I got hurt with those people. It was all very bonding, and that's the stuff that I like take away. And it's hard to remember that on sets because we get into this like grind mode. Got to get this done. Got to get this right. But that's where we should be really enjoying ourselves, because we don't know when it's going to actually come after that. And I do enjoy these sets. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I'm so glad you brought this up, because I was going to, but then I was like, we talked about this the other day, so I don't know if he wants to rehash. But yeah, so basically what he's referring to, guys, is when you end a movie, there's generally a wrap party and then a premiere. And we had neither. And there was a lot of reasons for that, including the pandemic, including excuses, finances, relationships bursting, hard lessons being learned. The truth is, some people don't even want to see each other, and that's just the truth. And thank God I'm learning and moving forward. But what it also taught me, because I didn't understand from like a top dog perspective that how important it is. Mm-hmm. And even doing the little one for Helmet, I was like, oh, this is what actually matters. This. And then even further beyond that, and I'm so glad for this gift because I'll never let it drop again. And also, I don't know if we're completely done with Stocking Fields being opportune for that, because we're still into some festivals potentially. So maybe there'll be an avenue there. But it was a great lesson because I'm never going to let that drop again. And it taught me that we spend way more time making the picture than we do watching and celebrating it. So we should make sure the time spent making the picture is enjoyable. That doesn't mean we're not going to work hard, but I'm not forcing anybody to work who doesn't want to be there. So that's on me as the producer to hire the right artisans beforehand to the best of my ability. And then try and have a picture where there's respect, creative openings for people. Because, like, you've been on those shows. You described it way earlier. It's like, okay, yeah, I'll do that. Ka-clink. Yeah, great. It's a paycheck. Sure. It's not even remotely fulfilling.
No.
It's not even remotely engaging. And it doesn't want to make me put my best even on the line in those circumstances necessarily. Compared to, like, when I'm invited to participate in the creative, like, creation, essentially, of this project.
Yeah, and it's not always going to be on the table, the offer for collaboration or the offer for fun. And that I said something the other day that I haven't really forgotten, which was like, you know, this took like X amount of years, and you know, I'm almost 35, and so I'm like, do I want to do this like 7 more times and then die? And that's like all I did. And the answer is no. And so that's why, you know, when you look into like, people look at short films and they poo-poo them. Like, why would I do that? Nobody's going to watch that. Da, da, da. Well, because they're faster creative outlets to get out these smaller ideas that you have that people could see and go, that should be a bigger idea. That should be a bigger thing. Let's get that guy and let's put him on our anthology series. Let's get that guy and let's put him on a show, whatever. And so I'm looking more at, you know, the blips and the booms, where I think that the features are like the booms and they're few and far between. And then I'm looking more at the blips, which would be like my music videos, pilots, you know, sketches, shorts, anything that can go to a little festival that I can express myself fast, you know, a lot faster than years or something like that, because I think we all have that creative yearning where we're like, gotta get this out, gotta get something out. And luckily I work in a lot of mediums, so I can get in a design program and push out like a little cartoon image in a day if I'm feeling, you know, creatively stuffy. But I think there's a lot of filmmaking things we can do with that too. And I didn't look at it as, that's why I say bittersweet. It was sweet. There was a sweet part, which was selling it. And that was, I think we all had our own internal celebrations with that, you know, which is huge. Not everybody sells a film. So it's like, you got that stamp now. You can get a tattoo now that says, I sold a film. And it's literally 100% true. But I just, I don't want to, I want to learn from that moving forward. And I think we both have.
Yeah, no, I love the way you put it, and I'm so thankful that you brought it up, because I was feeling it, but I couldn't quite articulate it, you know, because for me, I was like, personally, I'm still, like, as of yesterday, answering stocking field emails. Like, it's still going on, you know, and I found, I think some people know this, so I started writing a movie called The Hunt, getting nowhere with it. I brought it to Jordan. We made the stocking fields, right? I found the first draft I ever made of The Hunt, 2015.
Wild.
So that's 8 years, man. I've been involved in this project. And so bittersweet's a good way to put it. And I don't even think I gave myself credit, because I'm just like, it's expected. Like, no, I expect to do that. Like, right? That's what we do if we want to be successful. So I'm glad, because it allows me to give pause and remind myself, like, dude, look what you did. Pretty cool. That's pretty cool.
I think for like an ounce of happiness, that expectation has to go both ways, because it's got to be like, yes, while you're making it, I expect to sell this. And you'll go in with an air of confidence of like, no, I'm making a serious thing. But then whenever it actually sells, you have to be sort of honest with yourself that, like, I was actually unsure if this would sell the whole time. And now I'm elated. Because I like you know, you can't like fall for the lie like completely, but you have to fall for it enough to push the thing to the finish line. Because I just don't want those things like working against us. I feel very accomplished with what we did with that, and I feel like moving forward with more resources, everything will just go better and better, up and up. I already feel like that with Helmet. Like we already went up with Helmet. So it's just like it's a really cool process, and it's cool to watch us all kind of like fall into our spaces within this craft, you know.
Yeah, and also like what excites me is like what's the future of these crafts, right? Because if you look at acting, for example, the pinnacle used to be operatic theater, big 1940s. The actors theater, you know, the group theater, like big. And now it's like this very micro acting where it's all right here. So it's like, where do we go? Right? Like and I don't know, but I'm curious. And I know that applies to all of the different intricacies and art forms that apply to filmmaking and all art, obviously. Because there's like, and you're big into this. I think about like streaming and gaming. And I wonder how these worlds are colliding, and it already is kind of happening in a way where you're seeing The Last of Us get made. You're seeing probably they're going to do God of War next, because I think those are the two biggest franchises in history of video games. But it's just, and you're way more dialed into the streaming world. Do you see correlation, and like how do they help or hinder each other, or are they even related?
It's kind of cyclical, I think, because I've got really bold opinions on this. Like, in my opinion, YouTube is dominating television.
Totally.
Wholeheartedly and absolutely. And people get mad.
I watch it every day.
Every day.
Yeah.
And when you think about people younger than us, they don't, like, I haven't paid for cable in maybe 12 years.
They gave it to us for free.
Yeah, like anyone younger than us, they don't mess with it at all. And so in that regard, what I think is going to happen is what we've already kind of seen, where people with really low quality content, like the resolution is low and the camera, like all the production value is low, but they are entertaining. They're getting more views than like a reality show that's on television. And so it's we're kind of seeing a thing where people want more raw and less overproduced things. And then when they want their overproduced things, they want them like sharp and crisp and full of CGI. But that's good for us, because I think that things are going to go back to a little more grassroots, a little less of the bells and whistles and all the shinies and the quasar lights and aperture lights and everything being dialed in perfectly. And I think it's going to go back to a rougher style where the writing is better. I think it's going to go back to people being more into the content. But what we're seeing is like these things integrate more and more and more. So like filmmakers will go on YouTube and they'll make a bunch of tutorials. Hey, how to set up your camera, how to set up your lights, this and that. But then like once a month, they're like, just released my short. Here's the BTS for my short. And they're funneling you to their actual creative projects. They don't want to make tutorials, but they know that's what you're going to search for. So then they funnel you down. Learn how to do this. Learn how to do this. Now that you know I know how to do all these things, watch the movie that I made doing those things. And it's kind of tricky. But I think that some of these people on YouTube are making more money than some people that are getting deals on Tubi or whatever. And it's just all the numbers are hidden, so it's really hard to tell right now. But I think it's going that way, and I think things are going to kind of leave the mainstream a little bit, and then you're going to have to go a little more obscure to find the actual artist. But that's just my stupid hipster opinion.
No, I love it, and I think it's important to hear, and it's super real. You know, like my theory is that it's really hard right now to make a movie that's about real life that's better than reality TV. And
Yes.
because reality TV has been doing it longer than your one movie, probably, right? So the last 15 to 20 years, they've been dialing in, and you're an artist, so let's not pretend you have all this experience potentially, and you go and make a real movie. Well, people are like, why do I need to see that? I see it so easy. But if Avengers comes out, reality TV can't touch anything
Nope.
magical or ethereal, right? So that's why I think the movies like Avatar and these things are busting out, because reality TV's kind of taken away the dramatic narrative and rom-com landscape because they're doing it better at the moment. And I don't think that's a bad thing. People trip out when I say things like this, or you know, you hear photographers be like, the iPhone camera fucking running. It's like, well, get better, bitch. Like, get better.
Yeah.
Elevate, because this is pushing us all. And if the iPhone camera can do better than your photography, then I doubt it's the camera.
No. It's never the tool.
It's never the tool, right?
Even on the reality thing, YouTube is kicking the shit out of reality TV. And because they're realer. It's like, I'm in my house. I'm with my family. Like, what's more real than this? These guys are on a set. Like, and so people, they're like, oh, this is the closest. And then streaming is even closer. It's kicking the shit out of reality TV even more because it's uncut. It's uncut, uncensored. It's 2 hours to 8 hours long. I mean, it's literally just unfiltered, nonstop, linear people talking. And so people are wanting more and more real. And I think with the movies, people always say that I sound like the Riddler when I talk because I say like really vague things. When I say you should go for it, if you're making your movie, go for it. What I mean is like, stop pulling punches. Quit pulling back on all of the things that set you apart. The more regular you make the shit, the more nobody cares. Like, it's a movie, you know? And so, like, the things we grew up on, like in the early 2000s and all the comedy stuff, you're talking about, like, cartoon violence. Like, spinning a turnstile and sticking someone's face in it, and it's like, but, like, that kind of shit, dude. And we don't do anything like that anymore because everybody's trying to be too regular or not get canceled or whatever is floating around in their minds. But it's like, no, you need to go for it. Like, stop making the regular shit. If you have somebody get punched, whatever, CGI that their face gets smushed in with the punch and then it inflates back out whenever the guy releases it. And it's like, your shit's gonna pop, dude. Like, people are gonna have fun watching it and they're gonna be like, this was an experience. I didn't just sit through a sad story that was not entertaining at all. And it'll do something. But I think that's where things are kind of moving because, like you said, they can get fun regular with the reality TV. Don't do regular in your movies. No. Go for it.
Go for it. Rick Rubin, who, you know, arguably is like the biggest music producer of all time. And when I study him, I'll speak for myself. He's done it in all the wrong ways. Right? No music school, doesn't know music. I'm sure he does, but like, he's not a musician. He doesn't know. And anyway, that's to contextualize for anybody who doesn't know who he is. But he just said in his new book, art should divide. It should be divisive. He's like, if everybody likes your piece, it's soft and it says nothing.
And so they will say nothing.
Yeah.
If your thing says nothing, people will say nothing. They will go, this is good. Wow, this is great. And that's the worst possible thing that you could get.
I learned from a horror director that you're supposed to be having a conversation with the audience, right?
Yes.
And so, you know, he's like, you know those moments when you're like, I would never fucking walk in that door. Oh my God. Or he grabbed the candlestick? What a fucking idiot. He's like, sometimes those are on purpose.
Yes.
So that I'm engaging you. All of a sudden, he's like, no matter the emotion of engagement, I got you.
Yep.
And I love that. And it's the truth in all art. And I'm really starting to learn that. It's not necessarily like I'm worried about the audience, but I'm considering their experience. Because as you were talking the other day, Like, we're trying to do an experience here. And that's even like what I'm talking about being on set. So when I was listening to Bart, who's the EP of Helmet, I heard in my head early on, he's trying to have an experience here. And that's all I should focus on. Not how sick is Helmet going to be and we're going to sell it. But can I give this man the experience he's paying for and living for?
And if you can, he's not unique. Like if you can give him that experience, many other people like him will also have that same experience. See, this is like the theory of actual like entertainment. It might be boring, but this is like stuff that I really actually like, because this stuff is so malleable. It's so, there is no one way, you know. It can go any way, and it fits differently with different personalities, and that's what I truly love about it. There's not one path.
Yeah, no, it's like, it's something I was writing about the other day, like the anomaly mindset. You know, we're so hungry as humans to try and control life and know what's coming next, that when we see somebody who made it, we're like, I better do what they did to make it. But you're chasing a motherfucking anomaly. You're chasing a miracle. Like, that only happened for them. It doesn't mean you can't make it. It's just your path might look like orbits different, like literally around the sun different compared to them.
Way different.
And because you're expecting it to look like that, you totally fuck off your opportunities. And so I'm just like, that's where it's not always comfortable, because sometimes I'm like, well, why don't I have 10 guest stars and a series regular and all these traditional Hollywood paths? But that's just not my path right now.
Nope.
And that's okay. With that, I'm going to have to wrap it up, because I do have a meeting in a minute ago. But this has been wonderful, my brother.
Yeah, this has been great.
I would love to do it again. And before we go, I just want to say, I fucking love you, dude. You're one of the most remarkable guys I know. You're truly one of the most talented artistic people I know. But beyond all that, you're just a really great guy. And I'm so proud of all the growth and love and just loyalty you have. And the sense of self you also have is inspiring. So I just wanted to say that before we sign off here.
Thank you, man. Thank you so much. Thanks again for having me, and I love what you're doing with this whole school, your courses, and your podcast.